The bayou begins with a violent drug raid deep inside the swamps of Louisiana. Hidden among the thick trees and muddy water, a group of meth dealers secretly runs a dangerous drug operation. One night the DEA storms the location, causing panic among the criminals. During the chaos, several barrels filled with toxic liquid methamphetamine are dumped directly into the swamp water before the dealers are arrested. At first this seems like a small detail, but the chemicals begin spreading throughout the bayou ecosystem. The contaminated water affects the wildlife, especially the alligators living in the swamp. Slowly the creatures become larger, more aggressive and unnaturally violent, turning the once quiet wetlands into a deadly hunting ground. At the same time, a young college graduate named Kyle is struggling emotionally after the death of her older brother Jamie. She has never fully recovered from the tragedy and carries deep guilt connected to his death. Hoping to finally move on, she decides to travel to a remote location in the Louisiana bayou where Jamie once dreamed of visiting. Kyle brings an urn containing his ashes, planning to scatter them in the swamp as a final goodbye. Her friends join the trip to support her emotionally, although some of them secretly believe she has become obsessed with grief and needs closure more than another emotional journey. The group boards a small charter plane piloted by a rough but experienced pilot named Frank. The atmosphere during the flight is tense because the friends are already dealing with personal conflicts. Some of them argue about the purpose of the trip, while others complain about the uncomfortable journey into the isolated wilderness. Kyle mostly keeps to herself, staring at Jamie's urn and remembering painful moments from her past. Throughout the flight, brief conversations hint that Kyle blames herself for her brother's death, though the full story is not immediately revealed. As the plane flies deeper into the swamp region, the weather suddenly changes. Thick clouds gather overhead and the aircraft begins experiencing technical problems. The engines start failing without warning, causing panic among the passengers. Frank desperately tries to stabilize the plane and search for a safe landing area, but the endless swamp below offers almost no clear space. The aircraft rapidly loses altitude before crashing violently into the muddy waters of the bayou. The crash kills the pilot instantly and leaves the survivors trapped in the middle of the swamp. The broken plane slowly sinks into the water while everyone scrambles to escape. Kyle suffers a head injury and several others are wounded by debris. With no phone signal and no clear path to civilization, the group realizes they are completely stranded. At first they focus on gathering supplies from the wreckage and finding a way to survive until rescue arrives. However, they quickly notice strange movement in the water surrounding them. Their first encounter with the mutated alligators comes suddenly and brutally. One of the survivors wanders too close to the edge of the swamp while searching for luggage. Without warning, an enormous alligator launches from the water and drags the victim under within seconds. The attack shocks everyone because the creature behaves far more aggressively than a normal animal. Instead of retreating after feeding, the alligator continues stalking the group from the water, almost as if it enjoys hunting them. Fear spreads quickly among the survivors. They attempt to move through the swamp using broken parts of the aircraft as floating platforms, but the environment becomes increasingly dangerous. The bayou itself feels alive, filled with strange sounds, thick fog and dark water hiding unseen predators beneath the surface. Every movement through the swamp becomes a terrifying risk. As night falls, tensions inside the group begin rising. Some blame Kyle for convincing everyone to take the trip in the first place. Others argue about the best direction to travel. Kyle herself becomes emotionally unstable, suffering hallucinations connected to Jamie. She starts hearing his voice in the swamp and seeing flashes of him standing among the trees. These visions blur the line between reality and trauma, making her question her own sanity. During one particularly frightening moment, the survivors discover evidence that the alligators are not behaving naturally. They find partially dissolved chemical barrels floating in the water and notice strange wounds and mutations on the reptiles. Some of the alligators have pale, damaged skin, abnormal scars, and almost unnatural strength. The creatures move faster than expected and appear capable of coordinated attacks, making them even more terrifying. As the group continues through the swamp, another survivor is attacked while crossing shallow water. The alligator tears through the makeshift raft, dragging the victim away in a horrifying scene. The remaining friends barely escape. Panic slowly turns into hopelessness as they realize rescue may never come. Every direction leads deeper into the endless bayou. Kyle eventually decides to scatter Jamie's ashes into the swamp despite objections from the others. She believes completing the ritual may help her finally let go of her guilt. In an emotional scene, she pours the ashes into the dark water while remembering the last conversation she had with her brother. Flashbacks reveal that Jamie died during a robbery gone wrong. Kyle had a chance to save him but froze in fear, allowing the attackers to kill him. Ever since that moment, she has blamed herself for his death. Instead of bringing peace, the scattering of the ashes seems to intensify the danger around them. More alligators begin appearing nearby, almost drawn toward the group. The survivors become convinced that the contaminated swamp has transformed the creatures into relentless killing machines. As supplies run low, the group searches for shelter and eventually discovers an abandoned facility hidden deep within the swamp. Inside, they uncover the remains of the illegal meth operation raided earlier by the DEA. The building is filled with chemical containers, drug equipment, and signs of violent struggle. Through scattered evidence, they piece together the truth about the contamination. The dumped chemicals poisoned the ecosystem, mutating the alligators and turning them hyper-aggressive. Unfortunately, the facility has become part of the creature's territory. Several alligators surround the building, trapping the survivors inside. During the siege, personal conflicts erupt among the group. One survivor selfishly tries to escape alone, causing another death when the alligators attack. Trust completely breaks down as fear consumes everyone. Kyle's mental condition worsens throughout the ordeal. She repeatedly sees visions of Jamie, encouraging her to survive and forgive herself. At times she cannot distinguish reality from hallucination. However, these experiences slowly force her to confront the truth about her guilt. She finally admits to the others that she has been emotionally trapped since Jamie's death and used the trip as a desperate attempt to escape her pain. The survivors eventually create a risky plan to escape the facility. They salvage fuel from the crashed plane and prepare homemade explosives to distract or kill the alligators. The sequence becomes one of the film's most intense moments as the creatures attack from every direction. Giant alligators crash through walls and windows while the survivors desperately fight back using flares, broken tools, and fire. One by one the remaining friends are killed during the escape attempt. Some are dragged underwater while others are torn apart during close encounters with the creatures. The swamp becomes a nightmare filled with blood, darkness, and constant screams. Kyle watches helplessly as nearly everyone she cared about dies around her. Eventually only Kyle remains alive. Injured and exhausted, she reaches the final stage of her confrontation with the largest alligator, an enormous scarred creature seemingly leading the others. Using the remaining fuel, she creates a massive explosion that destroys part of the swamp and kills several alligators. The blast lights the night sky and temporarily clears a path through the bayou. After the explosion, Kyle drifts alone through the swamp on floating debris. The silence after the chaos feels haunting and empty. She finally breaks down emotionally, fully accepting both Jamie's death and her inability to change the past. For the first time in years, she stops blaming herself completely. Her survival becomes symbolic of finally facing her trauma instead of running from it. As dawn arrives, Kyle spots signs of civilization in the distance and slowly floats towards safety. The film appears ready to end on a hopeful note, but the final scenes reveal something far more disturbing. In the distant waters of the bayou, more mutated alligators can be seen moving through the swamp, suggesting the contamination has spread much further than anyone realized. The environmental disaster is far from over, and the nightmare may continue beyond the events of the film. The movie closes with Kyle emotionally broken but alive, carrying the scars of both the swamp and her past. The story ultimately combines survival horror with themes of grief, guilt, and environmental destruction. Beneath the monster attacks and suspense, the film focuses on a woman forced to confront the emotional pain she spent years avoiding. The deadly alligators become symbolic of the trauma hunting her from within, while the poisoned swamp reflects the consequences of human greed and carelessness. Although the survivors entered the bayou hoping for healing, the swamp instead exposed their fears, weaknesses, and hidden truths. By the end, Kyle escapes physically, but the horrifying memories of the bayou and the monsters lurking beneath its waters remain with her forever. Even after reaching safety, Kyle's nightmare does not truly end. In the final moments following her rescue, authorities begin questioning her about what happened in the swamp. However, nobody fully believes her story about the mutated alligators. The officials assume the crash trauma and extreme stress caused hallucinations, especially after learning about her emotional history and unresolved grief over Jamie's death. Kyle struggles to explain the horrifying events because the swamp itself has erased most evidence. The explosion destroyed large sections of the hidden drug facility and many bodies were lost beneath the muddy waters. Still, subtle clues suggest Kyle is telling the truth. Rescue workers quietly discover strange animal remains near the crash site, including massive reptile tracks far larger than normal alligators. One investigator also uncovers traces of dangerous chemicals in the water samples taken from the bayou. Although the authorities attempt to keep the incident secret to avoid public panic, rumors slowly begin spreading among locals living near the swamp. Fishermen report seeing unusually large creatures in the water, while several disappearances occur along isolated riverbanks in nearby towns. Kyle returns home physically alive but emotionally transformed by the experience. The trauma of the swamp changes her completely. For years she had been trapped by guilt and fear over Jamie's death, unable to forgive herself or move forward with life. Surviving the bayou forces her to confront death directly and realize how precious survival truly is. She finally understands that carrying endless guilt will never bring her brother back. In one emotional final scene, Kyle visits Jamie's grave and speaks honestly to him for the first time since his death. Instead of apologizing repeatedly, she thanks him for giving her strength to survive. Meanwhile, deep inside the Louisiana wetlands, the surviving alligators continue breeding in the poisoned waters. The camera slowly moves beneath the dark swamp surface, revealing dozens of glowing reptilian eyes opening in the darkness. This final image leaves the audience with a chilling message that nature has been permanently corrupted and the terror hidden within the bayou is only beginning. If you enjoy watching this video, then subscribe to Angel Recaps for the latest movies explanation.